I just got off a call with a friend who is stuck in his business at 1.3 million. That was his highest, his peak. But it woke me up to the importance of learning how to break these plateaus that you experience in your life. And the only way to do that is to truly master identity shifting and shifting at the being level. So here's this conversation. I had it recorded, and here's what we talk about.
I keep having these cycles that are repeating where it's like I'll hit a ceiling and then I'll regress and then we'll gain momentum and I'll hit a ceiling and then I'll regress. And I'm trying to figure out why I can't break through this ceiling and get to the next level. What do I need to do in order to get to that next level financially? Our highest year was 1.3 million. I want to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 10.
If you want to break out of a revenue ceiling or any kind of ceiling that you find is happening in your life, there are three paradigms that you got to understand. The lowest is the having paradigm, the outcome that you want. You're making 1.3 million, your highest year was 1.3 million, but now you want to go to like 1.5, 2 million, etc. A level above that is doing. You focus on just taking massive action, fighting and grinding. The highest paradigm is being. Typically what happens is the outcome at the having level, what you're experiencing is what you're experiencing because who you are, its highest level that it can conceive of is 1.3 million. And so it makes decisions, actions, doing from that 1.3 million identity. That version of you can't take the necessary actions, necessary risks and leaps of faith that the 2 million, $3 million identity would take. To give you an example, I was stuck at 1.1 to 1.3 million for a long time. And I realized that it was my limited thinking that kept me stuck at 1.1 to 1.3. There were things I wasn't willing to do. So it always comes down to what are you willing to sacrifice and give up to get to that next level? It doesn't mean you have to sell your soul to get to the next level, but it's more so how much are you willing to go against this $1.3 million a year version of yourself? Because if you're willing to go against it and test things that you haven't tested, do things you haven't done, because the guidance is all around you, but your reticular activating system isn't registering it because it's stuck with the paradigm and worldview of the $1.3 million a year version of yourself. So concrete example for me was my mentors had always told me to create a low ticket product, but I was always skeptical because I was hell bent on the one product, one funnel way. Like, I just got to do this one product and I'm going to scale it as much as I can. Oh, I'm not going to make YouTube videos on X, Y, and Z. I'm just going to keep making videos on the same things that I've been making videos on. But one year, the pain of just hitting the same level had become so strong. I was just like, you know what? I'm sick and tired. I am sick and tired of being stuck in this same situation. And for most people, that's exactly what happens. They get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then they open up. Right now, the reason you keep experiencing the same levels in your business is because you're closed off to growth. You're closed. And for most people, unfortunately, the only way they get open is it's brutally pried open. You know, they can't like get to a point where it's like, okay, you know what? There's my way of thinking, my worldview and my self-view is what's limiting me. And so they don't attract those opportunities. They don't attract the hires, like the kind of people they need on their team to take things off their plate, or they don't want to give up control of things because they're afraid. They're living in fear of losing what they already have. You can never grow if you're holding on to what you already have, because by definition, you're holding on to this 1.0 version of yourself. So if I'm living in fear and I'm afraid to lose this 1.3 million, because guess what? Next year, you might go down to 600K or 700K. And you have to be willing to be okay with that so that you can get to your next level. Okay, that's sometimes the price you pay for growth, but you always have to remind yourself that this is temporary. The time horizon that you're thinking of is way too short. And so you're trying to protect, you're living in protection, you're living in fear of protecting your current identity and what you believe in, what's important to you. And that's what's preventing you from taking the kind of risks and the kind of actions that will take you to 1.5 to 2 million to 3 million a year. So in short, what needs to happen is you need to have an identity shift to reinvent yourself and become a completely different person. But the only way that can happen is, number one, you become open to receiving 2 million. And it's going to be in ways that you've never imagined. And number two, you have to continuously ask yourself, if I were this $2 million a year version of myself, how would I be? What would I do? And in this instance, where I have an employee who's a half performer, even though it's really, really uncomfortable to fire them, what would the $2 million a year version of myself do in this instance? And continually use that as a metric for your actions. That's your standard. Your new standard of performance is that, even if that means in the short term, you're going to regress. As soon as I started to use this heuristic and I set my goal to, hey, I want to do 8 figures. I want to get to $1 million a month. Okay, you're going to lose 20 grand a month just testing ads. It's going to cost you a lot of money and you're just going to lose money, and it's going to feel like you might even go bankrupt. Like, to me, it just feels so darn uncomfortable to do that. Like, to test $20,000 a month, like just risk losing it all in the pursuit of growth. The chances are, if you're feeling that way, you feel very, very uncomfortable in the pursuit of growth and very uncertain, you're tapping into that faith zone where it's like, this is no longer territory, a zone of your comfort, right? This is a completely uncharted, unknown territory. And that's where that 2 million is. There's a great quote that I saw recently, which goes something along the lines of, it is better to live your own destiny imperfectly than to live an imitation of somebody else's life with perfection. And in my case, I was looking at all the gurus and all the mentors who were doing their business with one product and they scaled it, as opposed to what's right for me and my business and my own destiny. And as soon as I owned my own destiny and I gave myself permission to make more, the very next year, we went from, I made this new product and we went from doing 1.1 to 1.3 to doing 1.7 million. This year, we're on track to doing 1.9.
One of the things I kind of get hung up on is I've spent 5 years accumulating the knowledge to build out our agency. And to switch models now, I'm like, the thought of having to spend another 5 years switching models is also holding me back. How do I kind of eliminate some of those narratives that I'm telling myself in my brain? Because I know that's not true, but it's always kind of lingering behind, it's always at the surface of the decisions that I make.
So one heuristic you should always live by is feeling over thinking. So you're thinking about the next 5 years you might spend on this, but what if you didn't have to? What if you didn't have to switch this model? What feels like the right thing for you to do right now? If you were your ideal self, what would you do? Which decision would you make? Would you switch models completely, or would you find a way to make this current model work where it is scalable to that level that you want to scale it with? Or maybe build something on the side that supports and like makes this whole business synergistic. Instead of trying to think your way out of a problem, feel and then act. Most people feel, think, and then act. The organicness, the purity of your divine insight, that intuition, gets lost when the reasoning mind intervenes. Because we always have this gateway of, like, as business owners, like, oh, okay, does this make sense logically? Oh no, it doesn't make sense logically, don't do it. The act gets either polluted with the reasoning mind, or it just gets completely halted because the thinking mind intervenes and says, don't do this. But if you were to live on active faith and follow those intuitive hunches, like, hey, this doesn't feel right, or this does feel right, I'm just going to do it, even though it doesn't make sense. So in my particular instance, when I'm making these videos, these short form 12 to 15 minute videos, as opposed to like the normal chalkboard videos that I'm doing, I started to notice logically, mind, observation, that the performance of this isn't doing as well. And I'm also starting to hypothesize it's slowing down my channel momentum. The most logical decision would be to cut this off. But when I feel into my heart, it's like, this is the right thing to do. This feels the most genuine, authentic version of me. And if I were my 2.0 self, what would I do? I would do this. This is 100% what I would do, even if in the short term, it's not getting me the kind of results that I want. Because I know in the long term, it will lead to the kind of results that I want. So I am doubling down on that version of myself that's more tied to intuition, faith, rather than the reasoning mind and the numbers and the logic that it comes up with, that it concocts.
There's a fear element that comes on the feeling side of things. Like I'll be like, okay, I'm going to move down this path. And then all of a sudden, like, there will be doubts and fears that'll kind of creep up. Or like you specifically said before, you're spending $20,000 a month on ad spend. I've started spending ad spend, and then immediately I'm just like, I'm not feeling this. This is like, the leads are crap, or we're spending too much a day and we're not getting enough, or I'm not getting leads at a good enough rate, so something must be wrong. And then I'll just like turn marketing off because I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And that fear creeps in. So how do you prevent the fear from controlling?
All fear is a lack of trust in God. if you don't trust God and you believe you are the God of your own world, then there will be fear because all responsibility is on your shoulders. But if you cast the burden onto your superconscious, the Christ within you, or God, you say, you know what? I'm too little. I'm not like this is beyond my domain. I cast the burden onto God. God will take care of me. I'm afraid this doesn't make sense. Let me run it. Let's see what God says. Let's see what the right thing to do is. So I never act from a place of feeling rushed, of fear. But when I genuinely feel like, okay, this ad isn't working, this campaign isn't working, I've given it enough time, it's not working. I realized that in the past, I had tried even for like a year or 2 years to make advertising work. And it hadn't worked for me. So then I ran away from it and put all my money on YouTube. And that worked well. At the time, that was the right thing to do. But now the right thing for me to do is to go back on advertising and start putting money into ads, the 20K a month, to make it work. Because I believe like if you try something hard enough, you will make it work. Like there's no way. If you persist long enough, you will find a way to make it work. And it will lead to the kind of growth that you're looking for. And for me, when I think about it, I'm like, what's the most consistent way we can grow? I've got organic dialed in, but now I truly feel like ads is the way to go. Like I need to master advertising if I want to get to that next level. And one main thing that helped me do that, and I literally attracted this in my life when I made the intention to grow, just like I attracted the team members, it's almost like these synchronicities happen because you live in faith, like everything just falls into place. But that can only happen when you're not living in that place of fear, of doubting, and you cast that burden onto God. You say, you know what, God is going to help me with. I don't understand. When the time is right, the insight will come to me. That's when I started attracting the current sales manager I have, who also ran a $2-3 million a year company, and they were really good at marketing and they mastered advertising. And so that guy now, he's running an agency, he's running a mastermind offer where he helps you. And he was like, he looked at my offering and was like, yeah, you can definitely scale this with ads, but you just need a different kind of funnel. And so now he's helping me with that. And I think so far we're in the starting stages of it, but it's looking really, really promising. But it's crazy how these things work out when you get out of the way. When your personal lower self gets out of the way, you make the intention and you rest in that assumption. Instead of constantly checking your ads, you make a decision that I will check it at the end of 7 days, at the end of 2 weeks, at the end of 30 days, and you stick to that rather than checking it every day, then feeling fear and then acting from that place of fear and scarcity. So the most powerful way to break through plateaus that you keep experiencing, revenue barriers, you attract a similar kind of relationship or a similar kind of pattern just happening, it's really because of one thing, that being level, your identity. In order to make a permanent shift in your reality, not a temporary one, you need to make a permanent shift in your identity, who you show up as, who you identify with. And that needs to happen consciously. I made an unlisted training that's an hour and a half long, a workshop with a workbook, the identity shifting workshop. Not available for access to anyone right now, but you can click right here to access it. It's literally on YouTube. It is unlisted, not available for everyone, but you can access it with one click. So I'll see you in this next video right now.